So this workshop and the next workshop is really focusing on student success and what you need to know to be able to help students be successful here at Towson University. So at first, student evaluation of faculty seems like, well, maybe that should be later for when we get to the part about faculty success. But it's really important for us to be able to listen to our students through the student evaluation process so that we can hear their feedback, reflect on their feedback, decide what part of that feedback should you use to make changes. So especially as I still remember being a young faculty member and being very fearful of those student evaluations, but came to realize that they were probably very core about how I improved along with peer evaluations as a faculty member. So first I want to just let you know that don't be anxious about the student evaluation process here. We have a provost who's made it very, very public that she does not believe in the number games of student evaluations. That when people come up for tenure, she doesn't want to see in some sort of self-reflection that the department average is a 3.5 and I have a 3.6, so I just must be a wonderful teacher. Or if you have a department average that's 3.4 and you're 3.2, it might mean that you're just a little more academically rigorous, or if it can be all sorts of factors. So just don't be overly caught up with the number part of the student evaluations. I mean, if you keep consistently getting a 2.2 when the department average is a 4.9, that's a different story. It's the qualitative comments that can be very helpful. One way to get a really good sense of how students think about your teaching and be able to really gather wonderful information is to start encouraging the students to fill out the student evaluations. It is also a good idea, but a lot of faculty use different approaches at like midterm or even now. One process is a letter to the professor. Tell me what send me an email. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Another is sort of like the traffic light, red, green, yellow. Tell me what suggest what I stop for the red light. Tell me what you'd like me to start for the green light. And yellow, you might want to think about this for next semester. When you're face-to-face, it's easier to do those anonymously and confidentially. People can just write on a piece of paper and leave it on their desk. It's a little more challenging to do that in the virtual space, but you may, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, have the students forward them to one student who then provides them to you, or you can think of maybe having a Dropbox. I don't know the technology. Trish can help me out with that. If we can figure out a way to be able to do it anonymously. But that's helpful because if you may think you're doing something that's really helping students to learn, and by doing that sort of quick check-in, you're like, oh, they're seeing that as busy work. Is that really busy work? I'm really thinking that that's really helping them understand this concept. So it helps you get on the same page about the students' needs for their learning. So if you click on the link right here that's provided in the PowerPoints that you get, it will take you to this resource here. And it tells, in this resource, it gives you some ideas about, again, formative feedback. That's like getting the feedback in during the class. Making sure students understand that you're going to read that feedback and you're going to make changes where you can for the future semester, and their co-students, their fellow students, are going to reap the benefit from them taking the time to fill out the course evaluations. Use class time. That always is helpful. Sometimes what faculty, when we had a face-to-face, would bring in iPads to have students be able to complete it. The course evaluations all together. There's now an app where students can do it on their phone, and there's more information at this website about that. What's also included in this website under information for students is there's a tip sheet that you can send to the students or post on your Blackboard site. It's a little further down, providing value feedback for students right at the end. So this tip sheet is available for you to share with students, and it will help them understand the sort of course evaluation process here. We need to, when you go down a little further, you'll see that still has our old branding on it. We're working on getting it rebranded, but this is important information, I think, for students so that they understand also that it's more important for them than to simply say great professor or worst professor ever. But, you know, they need to give some descriptions regarding what really helped their learning or what really hindered their learning, so that faculty can make good decisions about continuing to enhance their teaching. So that was one thing that I wanted to talk about, was the student evaluations. Okay, and it's also, once you'll get an email, and the students get an email about when the course evaluation window is open. So that's done through an electronic process. It's always good then just to remind them, no, the course evaluation window is open, and that helps students remember to complete those. Okay, office hours. Now this is a little different now. Because you're not going to have the opportunity right now to have those face-to-face interactions during office hours. But not every student understands what office hours are. So it's really important for students to understand that they're paying for this resource. This is part of the package of tuition, is office hours. And that's the time for them to be able to seek one-on-one guidance as to questions about their academic performance and the course, as well as specific content questions. So just encourage you to be able to put make sure your office hours are really clearly communicated with students when you get to your physical office, having it somewhere on your doors in some way, so that students know when you're available, making sure that it's clearly posted somewhere on your Blackboard site, and then reminding students that you are available during those office hours. And another way that some faculty have chosen to really communicate their office hours is in their email signature block. So I would just wanted to just take a minute for us to go to the branding section of the university. This is a good place to go and visit, especially if you're going to be doing like a PowerPoint for a national conference or a state level conference. You can get resources here. And then also this, if you haven't already established your Towson email signature, this is where you go to do that. And there's all sorts of templates here, and right above there is where you would go and create your email signature. This is the place where you can add your preferred pronouns, so that students know your preferred pronouns, and it's a way for us to make all students feel comfortable interacting and sharing their pronouns. And again, it's a place where you could add your office hours. All right, thank you, Trish. So now I'm excited to tell you about these two resources that have been worked together for people from student affairs and academic affairs over the last several semesters, trying to consolidate in one place some resources for you. So the first faculty tips, that's the sheet that Allison was referring to. And that gives you places to go if you have any concerns about a student. So here is the information regarding the Counseling Center, accessibility disability services, student conduct. It talks about the care form. So it's a good sort of refresher for what you heard today and some additional language. So it's one of these we don't want to, what we've noticed is people aren't printing up enough as much as they were. And we hope to stay green when we go back to campus, but this would be one piece of paper or two pieces of paper that it'd be maybe helpful to print off and just have handy, or certainly have bookmarked somewhere, so that if you need it, if you have a student who's suddenly in crisis, you know where to go, and it will help you navigate which office and which group to send that to use to help support that student. So that's the tip sheet that Allison was referring to. And now there's another a place that's helpful for you to go, and that's the Academic Affairs Resources area. And here we have that this is a resource guide that's more focused on some other offices that can be helpful for you in supporting students and supporting yourself. So it includes the AAUP and information about athletics, environmental health and safety. Depending on what you teach, you'll have, and what sort of lab materials you use. Some of you will be more involved with environmental health and safety than others. So this is a list of other sort of offices that we will be telling you more about over the next few workshops, but for you to be able to just have some summary of the work they do and what services they provide to assist you in your role as a faculty member here at Towson University. All right, I'm going to give you one of my teaching tips that I learned early on. I read in a teaching professor. So I think it would actually work on the online environment as well as face-to-face. I haven't tried it, but if you're doing a discussion, like right now, I just asked a question and it's like all this silence. So I'm seeing, I'm not seeing hands up. Oh, I'm just sitting here and it's just me, and I'm just like, okay, everybody's wondering who's going to ask the first question, or we're just going to sit here for 15 minutes. So the suggestion was that you grab a cup of coffee. I never drank coffee, but I put a mug with water. I'll take that to class. And so I'd ask a question. If I didn't see anybody like put their hand right up, I'll just take a sip. And what that does is gives everybody a minute to think. It takes the anxiety of performing away. You get to stay hydrated, which is always a good thing. It also helps you stay hydrated with your voice and how people can hear you. And you just put the cup down or the mug down, and then it may be that nobody really has a question, or it could be that people have had a minute or two to be able to formulate a question. So that's a teaching tip that I pass on to you. And I think it'll work in the virtual, and it might be even more important in the virtual space.
I wanted to express appreciation for that statement, because I remember hearing you say that at a previous talk, and I've used that many times as I've been doing online lectures. And it's also, I find it's helpful because when I move the microphone up and take a drink, it just adds even more pause, and it does invite students to share a little more. I wanted to speak to the point of fostering a community of professionalism and equality, as you were mentioned in the beginning, in a hope that it will elicit academic integrity. And one of the things that I started this semester by doing, given the virtual platform, is when we did our introductions, and I'm very lucky to have relatively small class sizes, highest of 38. But I started and I asked each student what, about them, but also what they needed to be successful in the course. And for specific comments. And as they provided them, I took them all down. And then the next week I said, here's the ways I'm modifying the course based on what you've said. And then 2 weeks later, we checked in on it. And I said, is this, so you asked for this, this is how I'm doing that. Is that working? Is it not working? Tell me. And what, I'm not entirely certain if it's, bringing academic integrity to the forefront, but I did notice in my midterm evals that I asked students for formative feedback that it was very helpful. They expressed a lot of thanks about it, and often noted that those modifications were helping. So I guess that's something that I was happy that I did, and I think it's something I'm going to continue moving forward with.
Great, great, Erin, and thank you. I couldn't remember if I'd shared that tip yet or not, so thank you. And so, Erin, that would be something and for everyone, we'll be talking about this more in the spring about when you complete your materials to submit for your first annual review for those people in a tenure track position, but sort of just keeping a little written log of things that you've tried. Whether they're successful or not, keeping a log of what you try it's helpful for later when you are going to report, because there's a section of your annual report about what teaching modifications or innovations you've tried. And that way it's like, okay, well, I did this and it seems to be working. Or I did this, I thought it would work, but I'm going to try something different next semester. But it's better to try something than new and be innovative than not. It's always great to try and do things new ways to help students learn and us to grow.
We often, when we're face to face, we hear students say to each other, "Oh no, I can't go there during her office hours. That I don't want to bother her." And it's just so funny how the students perceive things. And so using some of Maggie's ideas about telling the students what the office hours are really for, that they really are student hours. I've heard some faculty here at Towson call them student hours. So the students know that this is the time I've set aside for you every single week. And that way they'll know they're not bothering you. They're not getting in the way of your research or whatever else you're working on. So I thought those were really great remarks. And I think the culture here at Towson about office hours and being student-centered is really wonderful.